Hi, welcome to our show today, Self-Employment, the Spirit of Entrepreneurship. This first part of our show, our guest today is Doug Crandall. Doug is a consultant who is working with our project. He does some work nationally with states around the country on customized employment and employment opportunities for people with disabilities. So welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Sue.
All right, so let's start off right away with, tell me why you think employment is so important for folks with disabilities.
Well, employment's important for all of us. It's not just an income. It, really frames who we are, how we contribute to our communities. And that sense of self-worth is important, whether you have a disability or not. And if we need anything in our communities, it's everyone's gift. So employment's the best way to do that.
And with your experience with states around the country, are you seeing more and more individuals with disabilities entering the workforce?
Well, it's slow, but I think we're getting there. Many states, as you know, have what is called employment first initiatives, meaning that when you enter into a public service system for supports, we think about employment first, not as something that you have to get ready for, because none of us are ready for employment, right?
Right.
But to offer those supports so someone can go to work based on their strengths, the things they're good at, the things they like, and not look at it as something you have to prove you can do.
You're going to be doing some work here in Rhode Island
Yep.
to assist our community agencies and individuals with disabilities that are interested in work. And we're going to focus in on what's called customized employment.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about exactly what that means?
Yeah, it's a definition. There's a federal definition, but I think that is probably not as useful as just thinking about it in terms of how we all work. So if you think about how you enter the workforce, the kind of jobs that you look for, we customize that, right? We decide, I'm going to focus on the things I'm good at. And so if you think about any position you've had, it hasn't gone straight from a job description. It has come from a place where you're building on those strengths. So we're trying to teach our disability systems, which we often call providers, to do that, to meet somebody where they're at, to use a person-centered career plan to focus on those gifts, those contributions, and then engage employers that way, rather than the only other way that we've done it, which is we look for openings and try to fit somebody into it. So this is tailoring a job for somebody, and that opens up all kinds of opportunities. None of us try to get jobs on the things we're not good at. We focus on the things we are good at, and customization does that.
So are you finding that states that are kind of shifting their focus from traditional means of assessment to things like customized employment are more successful with positive workforce outcomes?
Absolutely, and the other thing, that it's not just our state agencies, it's employers realizing that we need workers, regardless of label, to be able to contribute and build on their strengths. So yeah, we've seen the numbers edge up some. We know that younger generations, younger families, they're expecting that. These are young people who have always had the expectation that they should work and contribute. And so there's a generational change from younger parents, and then there's that change, I think, that's just coming from the community of employers who are saying, we want to welcome people. Would we like it to go a little faster? Sure, but we're making inroads that we've never have before.
And part of the process is starting off with the discovery process.
Yes.
And people being trained to conduct that whole process. So can you talk a little bit about exactly what that entails?
Yeah, sure. I think people know, if you have a loved one with a disability, that you get tested, you get a diagnosis, and again, those things are necessary sometimes to get services. But the discovery process is just what it sounds like. We're spending time with an individual person in settings that are in their home, in the community, and learning about what works best for that person. We often call that learning someone's ideal conditions of employment. And when we know someone's ideal conditions of employment, then we can start to engage employers on behalf of that person to customize around those ideal conditions of employment. And that is so empowering, because the truth is our systems have been focused on deficits. So who goes out and sells themselves that way? So we're teaching really our systems, our agencies, to figure out ways to get to know a job seeker in a very methodical process, but not using our typical testing approaches.
And I think looking at ideal conditions of employment, for some individuals, traditional forms of work just are not working. And so
Right.
people are kind of thinking about things like self-employment.
That's right.
Which is something that we're involved with here in Rhode Island, as you
Yes.
know. And
Yes.
I know you've had experience with other states around the country with that too. So
Yeah.
how is that working nationally?
Well, you asked earlier about the definition of customization in employment, and it includes self-employment. It includes entrepreneurial activities. And when you think about building a business, you build that around your own ideal conditions of employment. And that option, the latest numbers we have is about 2% of closed vocational rehabilitation cases across the country are in self-employment, while we know the general population makes some kind of miscellaneous income around self-employment, around 30%. So we've got to increase the accessibility, just like you all are doing with the project in Rhode Island. And when you do that, when you have that opportunity as well, people really do have choice, because they can choose, do I want to work a wage job that's customized, or is it a better fit for me to figure out my ideal conditions of employment with the supports wrapped around the self-employment piece? So that part is so exciting.
We're finding a lot of families that are interested in choosing self-employment or assisting their family member with building a business.
Yeah.
And from some of the businesses that I've seen around the country that are really successful, I see a lot of family involvement in that activity. So what advice would you give to families to help them to be proactive in things that they can do to help support
Sure.
their family member that might be interested in starting
Yeah,
a business?
that's a great question. There's a slogan that is called "Work early and work often." Work early and work often, and that just means we learn by working. Human beings learn that way, not by pretending to work or being tested before you go to work, by learning on the job. And so families can make sure that people with disabilities and young students have chores, that they have opportunities in the summer. I'm thinking about a young family right here in Rhode Island that we met with who is trying to figure it out for their 12-year-old.
Yep.
And that's so important because it's empowering. We as human beings rise to the expectations that our loved ones give us. And if we expect you're not going to work, then we don't rise to that. If we expect you're going to work and contribute, yes, we'll need supports for that. Yes, we'll need to customize that. We might need to do self-employment or entrepreneurial activities that are involved in that, but that's the way that we increase the availability to choice for families. And I think that is so exciting. Not only does it help the young person or the adult with disabilities working, but then we change our communities. It really is economic development. If someone starts their own business, they're paying taxes, they're engaging customers in their community, and what better way to spend public dollars than to do that?
Well, the research that you've done about the economics involving folks with disabilities and their families is really key, especially for employer education
Yes.
and to educate the legislature about the importance of providing supports to the developmental disability system with appropriate funding to provide what it is that individuals need in order to be successful. So what are some of those statistics that you've encountered that you think are important for people to know about?
Sure. Well, the one that I get excited about, which we don't track much in human services, is this return on investment to taxpayers, right? We're all taxpayers, every one of us. What do we want in terms of return for that? And a guy named Dr. Samara studied over 230,000 closed cases of people who are successfully working who had disabilities. And he found that for every one of those folks who go to work, it returns $3,000 a year, every year, to general taxpayers. That's powerful. That's a great argument to make. The other one that I think employers and companies and businesses, both large and small, are starting to learn is that families who have someone in their family who has the label of intellectual or developmental disabilities, they have the purchasing power of $66 billion, that's with a B,
Wow.
$billion a year. And so companies want part of that business. And what better way to attract that than to say, we're open for business and we're open to hiring folks who you love and care about. And people will spend their money in those type of economies. And so those numbers, I think, not only do legislators need to know that, but local businesses, our own staff in provider agencies need to know that, because that's an argument that makes sense to everybody.
It's really important information that we need to figure out. How do we make that pertinent to Rhode Island? How can we
Yes.
take the numbers of individuals that are already employed in the workforce? We think there's about 1,000
Right.
of the 4,000 plus adults with
Yeah.
disabilities, and make some data, develop some data around that. I think that would be something that would be really important to do.
Yeah. Well, and I think Rhode Island is leading in so many of these cases and these situations, and putting some numbers that are local is really important, because that motivates taxpayers, businesses, and families with folks with disabilities.
And even with self-employment, we're also trying to track people's business growth. What are they making in 2018? What do they make in 2019? How are we helping that business to be even more financially successful? So those are some of the things that we're doing with this
I love
project.
that. Well, and those folks working, whether it's self-employment or wage employment, they're spending their money in the community, money they weren't spending before. And again, that's what makes healthy economies and healthy communities.
And I think that that's a real important point for people in the general community to hear, because lots of times people think that our systems take money away from everybody else. And so it's important to kind of see where the contributions are.
Yes, yes.
Really appreciate you being on this portion of the show, Doug. You're going to be on our second half of the show,
Great.
where we're going to talk with a couple of families and get their perspective on why they think self-employment and employment is really important for their family members. So we'll talk some more with you in a bit. We're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the second half of our show, and for this part of the show, we have a couple of family members that are joining Doug and I. So I'd like to introduce Claudia Lowe and Sheila Coyne. So we'll start with talking with you, Claudia. You're involved with a business with your daughter, Katie, so can you tell everyone a little bit about that business?
Katie started a business for card making. It's called Cheetah Designs, and she's focusing on cards for adoption, fostering, pet bereavement, and then she's doing the traditional birthday, wedding, baby, and stuff like that. So those cards as well.
And tell us a little bit about the cards, because they're not traditional cards that you would find in a store, so they're a little bit different. So describe a little on how
well, Katie, we started crafting, paper crafting with stamps and the Cricut and things like that. And so she gets a paper pack, we call it, and she cuts the shapes out of the paper and just builds upon the shapes and the colors and the designs and so forth. And she does that. And
So the cards are 3D.
They are, yeah. So we call it pop-up in the biz. We put a little foam tape and make it so it's a three-dimensional type look. Yeah.
Great. And how long has she been doing this business?
She's about 4 or 5 months.
Okay. And before that, she had another business.
Before
and
that,
still has it.
She still has it. She DJs a few times, well, about 12 times a year, 13 times a year.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And Sheila, you and your son Michael are about to start a business, so can you tell us about your business?
We are. We're opening the Budding Violet. It's a retail store, and attached to that is the Red, White, and Brew Cafe. Michael is pretty much going to be doing the cafe side. He's interested in food service and the community and customers, and he's like the mayor of our area, so it's a perfect fit. We hope to be open November 5th. That's our goal.
And on the retail end, tell us a little bit about what that will include.
The retail space is going to include vendor space that people can rent, making handmade cards, things like that. We've got all kinds of different crafts. We've got people that make signs. We have a woman that makes crocheted items. We've got authors, photographers. One woman sells honey. So it's a lot of various items.
So a lot of other entrepreneurs with disabilities and without disabilities.
Yes, with and
will be
without.
within the store. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity, especially for a lot of Michael's peers that make great products like Katie and then have nowhere to showcase them or house them, sell them.
And why did you choose, or why did Michael and or Katie choose self-employment? Both of them had been involved with traditional services from community agencies in the past. So, Claudia, why did you go this route, or why did Katie want to go down this path?
We found a lot of employers weren't really receptive to Katie's unique needs. You know, whether it was she needed a few extra minutes on a lunch break, or she needed, you know, more bathroom breaks, or whatever the case may be. It just didn't really go with their flow. We were fortunate enough at the time to have ORS services, so she had enough support hours. But when ORS was backing out, which they do, and I understand, they told us that Katie could not be in this business alone. So that sort of changed the whole, you know, picture for her. So she loves being her own boss. She's very driven. You guys know Katie very well. She's very driven. She, making cards, if you interrupt them while they're making cards, she will clearly give me the time notification on her wrist to tell me that she needs to go and make cards. So it really gives her an opportunity to do it at her rate, in her way, and we don't have to like be troubled by, you know, all the rules that are outside. So.
And how about for Michael? Why did Michael go down this road? And
Well, with Michael, he was in school services, interested in food prep and food service, interned is what they call it, for a local restaurant. We were really happy with his progress. He loved it. And then when the job became available and he aged out of school services, he applied for the job, and they were like, "Oh, sorry." They wanted it for free, but now it was time to pay Michael. And I was shocked at not having any other member in my family with a disability. I always just envisioned Michael would live like I live. So when I was like, "What do you mean?" So we looked for employment, and like Claudia said, there was different barriers. A lot of employers didn't even want to give him a chance. So we made our own road. I said, "Michael, you're working. What are we going to do?" And we just took what he liked, and God willing, we're going to knock it out of the park.
you are. So both Katie and Michael have been involved in our business development classes and have gained access to information that they probably wouldn't have gotten from other connections that they've had over the years with community agencies. So what kinds of positive changes or changes have you seen in your family member as a result of them now being business owners and self-employed? So we'll start this time with you, Sheila.
Well, as you know, Michael has the improvement in his confidence, the way he is with people. It gave him a business card. Oh my goodness. We've gone through 500, I think, over the summer. It just empowers them in a way that I wouldn't have ever expected. I thought it was pretty awesome a year ago, but now that he has all the tools and he's been able to meet with other people with disabilities who are now entrepreneurs and have really made a successful life, it's really given him a positive outlook on how he can also be successful and support himself and be happy and just do what he wants.
You can see that sense of pride on his face when he says, well, I'm the manager.
Right, a year
So I'm
ago,
the manager.
he couldn't look at you,
Yeah.
remember?
Right,
I mean,
yeah, no, he couldn't.
He had his head down, didn't really want to talk to people, didn't want to engage. To see the difference now, the handshaking, the eye contact, the here's my card, connecting with other people with disabilities to be vendors. He's working. He's, this isn't just in words. He gets up every day. He's been getting the store together. You know, it's physical work as well to run your own business, and he's doing it.
Great. How about with Katie? What kinds of changes have you seen in her?
Katie has always had self-confidence, that's for sure. She's never really lacked in that, but it's just the exposure she's had to a different terminology, you know, an elevator pitch. I never would have imagined, you know, 2 years ago, if I said elevator pitch, you would have known what the heck I was even talking about. You know, now she wants to give one. You know, I want to tell people about my business or, you know, that type of thing. And she's just, I'm very lucky. She has a great personality, so she's very outgoing. And that's been certainly a gift, I think, in this whole thing, because she's very, very sharing with her what she's doing for her business and so forth. And just meeting the other folks, the class, the teachers, I just think it's just the whole experience has been phenomenal. And the amount of information that she's able to take and, you know, that we wouldn't have ever been exposed to before is wonderful.
Well, both Katie and Michael are really lucky to have you guys as parents and being so involved in their business, because what we've seen, one of the factors for success with a business is that the person is not doing the business by themselves, right? I mean, if I were to start a business, I would be involving a bunch of people in my family and my friends to help me to get it off the ground and to be there and to do different aspects along with me to be part of my business team. So both of you are very involved with the business. What would you say to other families who may have individuals that want to start a business in terms of the kinds of things that you as a family member need to do in terms of encouragement or the actual work that you need to help them to support them with the business? So Claudia?
You know, one of the things I think that's really important is, we talk about discovery and all of that, and I think it's just to make sure that whatever it is, it's what they want to do. It's something that they have a passion for. And I think that, you know, and that, once you find that and that's successful, it's almost like you can, not that you're not going to let it go, but you can kind of let it take its course, and it will. But, you know, it's just, there's a lot of paper type work, I think, that's, you know, involved for families to, you know, just to be aware of and things. But it's been, I don't know, it's brought us closer together, if you will, because we just, you know, spend more time together. I kind of know everything, not that I want to be involved in the day-to-day mundane things, but you just, you know, you just help it. But we try to let her do, you know, what she wants to do is, you know, as far as, you know, the driving force, so.
What do you think, Sheila?
I fully agree. With Michael, I mean, there's a little, like with a typical child, you have to push a little, or else Michael would probably be sitting at home playing a video game. So there's that part of finding what they like, so you do start that fire, and then once they make that connection, and not just with Michael and Katie, with how many we've seen come through this program, once that fire is ignited, you can't stop them. You feel it. You feel the excitement. So then as a family member, I don't think you can not encourage. You start to see reactions and emotions that you didn't expect. And the knowledge they do pick up, and they want to do a business plan, and they want to progress and get more customers, and where can I sell my items? You do a disservice if you didn't encourage that. Like you would do with any family member, like you would do with a spouse. You know, you have to support them, sometimes strongly encourage, and you let it take its course, you're right.
I think for some families it may be a little overwhelming, the whole thought of starting a business and what that might entail.
It's still overwhelming.
Yes, but I think what's great about our project is that we kind of take it one step at a time.
Exactly.
We're going through the business classes, and each step that's really important with respect to a business, the market research, the developing an elevator pitch, developing a business plan, looking at the whole accounting stuff, and marketing. You know, what are the ways that you really need to figure out in terms of what's the best approach for you to market your business. So that's, you know, the fact that we take each one of those things singularly and then build upon that and provide the technical assistance that somebody needs through the business consultants is really important. What would you say about the support that you've received from the business consultants that are involved in our project?
Do you want to go first?
Well, for us, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are. We wouldn't be opening in November. The classes were excellent. It gave us a foundation, but it was that follow-up with the experts afterwards. I didn't know how to do a business plan. If we didn't have Brian and the connection he made with Michael, it's still, they still communicate. It made the difference of whether or not we would open our doors.
Claudia?
I
Just a couple of
agree.
seconds left. So
I agree. I think that the staff, the you know, business people that we've been working with have been nothing short of phenomenal, and they're so eager to help, regardless of whatever the disability or whatever is. They've been amazing, and again, like Sheila said, I wouldn't have known how to do a business plan. My life depended on it, so it's just been great. In each class and each time I go, I learn something new.
well, I think what's, you know, again, key is that you folks as family members are willing to share what you've learned with other family members that are out there and help take them through the steps of the process, which is really important and a key to assisting somebody to be successful in what it is that they want to do to pursue for self-employment. Well, I'd like to thank all three of you for being our guests today on our show, The Spirit of Self-Employment and Entrepreneurship, which is a really cool thing. We're doing really well in Rhode Island. And thanks for sharing your knowledge with our viewers out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.